Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, spiritual global entrepreneurs. Welcome to the EGU podcast, Abundance Frequencies. You're with Michelle Reinhardt. Let's get cracking.
Today we're journeying to the other side of the globe to be yourself and reclaim your health. Many struggle with debilitating health issues and are often told they have to learn to live with it. And our guest today has a powerful message for those that have or are struggling to reclaim their lives from chronic illness. Hello and welcome to the show, Eloise Heather.
Hello there, Michelle. Thank you so much for that intro. How are you doing today?
I'm wonderful. Thank you so much. And it's an absolute pleasure to have you with us.
Oh, it's fantastic to be here. I'm very excited.
Me too. So folks, grab a pen and paper, turn off your zings and pings for 30 minutes and experience firsthand how you can heal whatever you set your mind to. Please let me tell you a little bit about this lovely lady. Eloise helps women recovering from chronic illness who dread returning to a job to find their calling. To reveal their true selves and alleviate lingering symptoms. She's an accredited master coach, a writer, and contributing author to the #1 best-selling 365 book series. Her motto is, be you, be well. She loves and appreciates walking her little dog, Pepper, in the scenic British countryside and coast. Well, Eloise, I'm super keen to learn how you help people through the darkness of illness. Would you please share with us what you do and how you got into it?
Okay, so that's the big one, isn't it? I could probably talk about that all day. Well, what I do is I help women to reconnect with their true selves. And it's usually a case of they got lost along the way from birth to wherever they are now. And the problem with their their surroundings and their environment, well, not their problem as such, but it's when life is put upon you from a young age, you don't always get to discover who you really are. And you just go through the motions and do what you think you should do. And you don't do what you think you shouldn't do. And I really help women to kind of take a look back on that and see actually what I'm doing and how I'm living isn't true to myself. And my belief is that if you reconnect with your true self, then it will alleviate the symptoms of chronic illness. So yes, I took supplements and I changed my diet and I changed my lifestyle, but it wasn't the only kind of piece of the puzzle that was important. And the reason that I do what I do is because I've been there personally. As I was saying before, when I was taking supplements, etc., that was because I was ill myself. And the reason that happened is because I got ill when I was studying law. I started to get ill around 2008. And that was around about the time when I stepped into studying law, which is something I've been primed for my whole life. And then I started to experience all these symptoms and it kind of gradually crept up on me. And then in 2009, I couldn't push through anymore because that's what I was ultimately doing, trying to continue with everything that I'd intended to and stick to this career path that I'd expected I would always follow. And ultimately, the rug was pulled from underneath me and I just collapsed to the floor, quite literally, because I lost my balance on the way to work experience at a law firm, and I fell over and I broke my coccyx. And I even still, after that, tried to push through, and then my health really came at me hard. My body threw up all these other symptoms to the point where I became housebound almost because of the symptoms that I was experiencing. and it meant that I had to leave behind law for the time being, or so I thought. But ultimately, as I went through recovery, and that's obviously a big story in itself, but in terms of where it's got me to today, I discovered that even though I was implementing the right nutritional things and the right lifestyle changes, I was still experiencing setbacks. And I know that's common for a lot of people who have suffered with chronic fatigue syndrome. And it wasn't until I really started listening to my body and noticing that actually these setbacks were occurring whenever I was doing something that was reverting back to what I was doing before I got ill. So not necessarily going back to law, but fulfilling expectations of others. Maybe not even expectations that they had, but expectations that I perceived and that I had learnt when I was a child, and they were still with me. And so my body was sending me symptoms every time I got off track, and that's why I was having these setbacks. And it wasn't until I discovered my life purpose, which wasn't a destination, even though I thought it was at the time. Yes, so I discovered my life purpose, and then I didn't really know what to do with that because it was a huge thing. And so there was this void there for me to explore. And then I started to experience a few other symptoms, the main one being depression, which really kind of emphasized the fact that I needed to align myself with whatever it was that was inside of me waiting to come out. And the closer I got to this true representation of who I was at my core, rather than the kind of cement mask that I'd put on myself in order to be accepted and approved of by the world, as sooner I chipped away at that and the closer I got to my core, the better my health became. And it still goes that way. And sometimes even now I will get symptoms because that's the way that our bodies work. They're constantly trying to communicate with us. And if, as we all are evolving, if we're evolving beings, then ultimately our body is trying to keep us in alignment with our truth. And when we're falling out of alignment with what's true for us, that's when symptoms are sent. And because I'm hopefully evolving, then what happens is that you continue to get signs, that like little signposts along the way that let you know whether you're on track or whether you're needing to realign.
Oh, so, wow. I agree completely with you. And there'll be a lot of people that are sitting there nodding their head because it's true. We tend to think we're doing all the right things and we're heading along the right way, and then bang, you get hit literally by a brick wall, and you have to reassess things and look around and find out what is truth and what is perceived truth. I agree with you totally. So what do you suggest people do when they experience physical pain, when they feel that they're, well, clearly you know that you're not reaching your optimum if you're unwell, and the sicker you are, the further you are away from that. But how do you start people on that road to recovery? Eloise, are you there?
I'm back. Yes, sorry, I don't know what happened with the connection there.
That's all right. That's okay.
So, are you asking about what people with physical pain need to be doing? Is that the question?
Absolutely. How do they get onto that road of recovery and of purpose?
Okay, so I'm assuming here that they've also sought the the guidance of their physician, but in addition to that, from my perspective, what people need to be doing is really acknowledging that physical pain, because lives today are just so hectic and so busy, and once we're into our day, we get up and we're straight into the day and we're just on the go constantly, then we don't really take into account the fact that we may be feeling some kind of discomfort. But when physical pain strikes, and it strikes hard, that's because we've not necessarily been listening to the kind of the quieter signals, so the discomfort that you may have been feeling before. You might have built up a threshold for it, because that's what happens if you've got something going on in the background. Then it's just going to get louder and louder. That's ultimately the body telling you there's something wrong and it needs to be something needs to be done about it. That's what pain's there for. But of course, when you're not sure what's actually causing it, then it becomes a little more tricky for the logical mind to interpret. So the first thing that you need to do is to acknowledge it completely and utterly, because if you ignore it, then it will get louder, and there's no two ways about it. It'll keep shouting at you. And in order to acknowledge it, you really just want to be mindful of the feeling and kind of tap into that. And you may notice that because you're actually paying attention to it, it may get a little bit louder to start with, so the pain may increase a little bit, but that's a good sign, because it's coming up saying, hey, you're noticing me. So
yeah, like it's jumping for joy.
Yeah, exactly. So when you acknowledge it, you're giving it that space. You know, you can say, right, okay, take the stage. What is it that you need me to know? So the second thing to do is to ask. So ask yourself, or if you rather ask the pain, what are you here to tell me? And that's really crucial, because a lot of people, they'll look to external sources to find out potential causes. And yes, that can be very fruitful, especially because sometimes we don't know what we don't know. But the problem with that is that we're not relying on ourselves and our inner guidance system. We all have our own truth. And if we are going without and looking all around us for the answers, then it's not necessarily going to bring you to the answer as quickly as if you just ask yourself and listen closely and just trust that the answer is actually in there. And you'll find that the more you try this exercise over time, the more easily the answers will come, because you're showing that you're trusting that inner guidance. And so the answers will come up much more quickly, because your subconscious is saying, hey, you're trusting yourself now, and it's bringing it up more quickly. And if you ask that question, what is this physical pain here to tell me? Your brain will search for the answer. It'll go through all of the files in your brain. It's the ultimate search engine, and it will bring up an answer for you. And if you can make a habit of asking yourself this question, then you will get closer and closer to your own truth over time. So yes, that's what I suggest.
And equally, when we ask, it's vital that you stop and receive the answer. Give yourself that recognition of that space.
Absolutely.
I love it, that 3 seconds just to really listen. So many people do ask, and then they just move on to the next thing, and they don't give themselves a chance to complete that process. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. I completely agree with that. It's kind of like when you're having a conversation with someone and you ask them a question, and then halfway through their answer, you realize that you forgot to listen properly. And it happens a lot because, again, the mind is full of internal chatter, and it can take you on a misguided tour, because there's all this other stuff going on in your mind if you're not mindful of it. And the other problem is that the ego will chime in and say, oh, right, yeah, I'll analyze this segment so I can give them an answer once they've finished speaking. And that's kind of like, well, that's all about you then, rather than about the other person. So what I suggest is for people to kind of, what I call it is taking a lift, an elevator down from your mind into your heart space, and really just being present there. So instead of analysing and being stuck in that mental chatter, you can come down into your heart space and listen. And it's exactly the same when it comes to listening to yourself. So on a bit of a tangent there, but I still think it's relevant.
No tangent at all, because on a realistic thing, it's no different to having a conversation out loud.
Uh-huh.
I hear, and I'm I guess a bit of a witness to it, of people just butting in and talking over you before you've even had a chance to finish your conversation. And the ego brain does exactly the same thing internally,
mm-hmm.
as you see happening all the time externally. So it's quite beautiful. And yeah, I love that you suggest to take a lift down from the mind into the heart space, because the heart has a brain unto itself.
Sure, yes.
And that one never lies, and it is always ready to listen and to give and to love and to receive if
Absolutely.
we give it the space. Yeah, so we've got people with illness. We're clicking into the mindfulness and the desire and the need to be heard from that pain. It's like a dearest best friend, and that little voice inside will quite often be the voice that you would use to speak to your children, to speak to your loved ones. It is full of compassion and love.
Sure.
So it's not necessarily another voice that's going to come bombarding you with wisdom. It's that deep inner voice of 100% compassion. Once we recognize that, what's the first step that you work with your clients to help them once they've acknowledged that?
Well, really, it's about their self-worth, because ultimately, if your self-worth is low, you're not going to trust in the guidance that's coming from within. And if that's the case, then you're already probably going to be in the pattern of constantly seeking other people's approval, not consciously, but it's a subconscious element that it just keeps feeding itself, because you're giving away your power almost by seeking other people's approval and acceptance. But when I work with people one-on-one, I help them to reconnect to their own self-worth and believe that they are actually good enough exactly as they are already. They don't need anything added or anything taken away. And once they begin to accept themselves and start to love themselves, then that level of self-worth goes up. And I know that a lot of people might think, oh, well, that could never be me. I could never have a high level of self-worth. But I used to have really low self-worth, and it was all down to, when I retraced my steps, picking up things from my childhood, and then those beliefs that I kind of started to rehearse in my brain when I learnt them were then reinforced by my experiences throughout childhood. So even though I was at an age at secondary school, say, where I could make judgments about those beliefs, whereas when I was younger I couldn't, they had got to that point where they were being reinforced. And it's a very tender age when you're a teenager, but the initial stage when you're an infant is really important, because you're just absorbing everything that's going on around you, and you're not making any kind of judgment when you're an infant. So you're just taking on all of these things, what you should do, what you shouldn't do. And ultimately, your brain is saying, hey, we need to survive. If you don't receive love, then we're not going to survive. We're going to be rejected, or we're going to be neglected. So we need to be approved of. We need to be accepted in order to survive. And then we take those the beliefs that we acquire with us into adulthood without realizing it, because it's subconscious. And so when I'm working with women one-on-one, I kind of often take them back to their inner child, and that's not me leading them there. That's just usually where it ends up, and it's often associated to a particular time in childhood where they've adopted this belief, or a belief's been reinforced. So that's why it is so important to work on that in order to build up the self-worth.
I couldn't agree more. I work with energy and smashing limiting beliefs and the energetic patterns of them. And I know that these beliefs are formed between the ages of 1 and 7. And it can be be a parent, it can be a well-meaning, significant adult in your life. It's usually not another child, because they are as pure as we are at that age. But yes, we spend the rest of our life proving that which we have taken in as truth. And it's usually a great big fat lie. and it's shattering. It's just soul destroying to see that in people just continually playing that out in their lives, and purely because that's what we know to be true.
Absolutely, yes, that is the truth that we come into when we're born into the world. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So how do you, what would you suggest people do when they've realised it, and that listening to this, it'll be just like, oh my gosh, we do need to take responsibility for ourselves as adults, and at some stage we need to stand up and just say, well, you know what, this is my life, I am in control.
Yeah.
Where do they go to do that?
Well, the first thing that they need to do is to congratulate themselves for that level of self-awareness, because it's so difficult to come to it. And I think it's absolutely amazing when you do. And it's quite an exhilarating feeling in itself when you come to that realization. And so it should be celebrated, in my opinion.
I agree. Yeah. And yeah, that's for sure. And but then of course the ego jumps in and just, and that's where the game and the struggle starts. And I know a lot of people have an internal battle that is so destructive and hurtful and shameful and painful. So how does one tame the ego?
Well, I think it's important to reach out to other people in this kind of situation, because it's a very tender moment when you suddenly realize how vulnerable you've been to these beliefs that that have been operating most of your life, and you can be overwhelmed with actually how much influence the ego patterns and therefore your life. And so reaching out to somebody else, it's kind of a bold move to make for some people, but you don't need to do it alone. That's the important thing to remember. Doing it alone, that's just the ego that's telling you that you should do this because perhaps you were told that you needed to be independent when you were younger, and that might be something else that you've kind of taken with you on your life journey. But reaching out for support from others, and it could be from a trusted friend, or it could be a support group that you know can relate to this situation. or it could be a mentor. Just really, that's a really important time for you to reach out to whoever it is that you feel that you need to reach out to. And sorry, were you going? I heard you pause on that. To ask me a question.
I agree 100% with you, and you will be amazed to the level of support and assistance that will start popping up for you as well. Once you open that door to healing and to your truth, the universe kicks in the most beautiful way, and literally will send angels at you left, right and centre to help you. Again, the thing to do here is to just be open to receive the support.
Absolutely, yes.
So then, sorry, Eloise, continue, please.
I think there's a little bit of a delay. I
think so too, yeah.
No, it's gone. Okay. It doesn't matter.
I'll jump back in whilst we're pausing then, because there's a definite link here towards what people are calling a spiritual awareness, which is that awakening, if you like. And this is where our soul is starting to say, hang on, I'm starting to get heard here, and I've got a lot to say, a lot to do, and a lot to help you with. How did that work for you in terms of your spirituality being sparked and your healing journey begin?
Wow. That's a big question. And it was just baby steps, really. And I think because my background, it's in philosophy prior to law, and obviously law is also quite logical. And so that was me before. I was very analytical and logical, and to hear myself talking about something like a subjective truth now, like the previous me would actually probably giggle at that, because it's just a complete contrast to where I am now. And it was the catalyst for me was, without a doubt, becoming ill. And it was then that I started to seek support. And I had always been interested in spirituality, and I studied religion and theology at university as well as philosophy. So I already had that keen interest, but in terms of applying it to my own life and evolving consciously, for me, it's been such a gradual change, just drip by drip. So I began to understand the way that I was contributing to my own ill health at the time, and that was kind of like the first step. And then I kind of accidentally went a bit woo-woo, for want of a better phrase.
I'm going to use that phrase.
And so what happened was I just kind of kept following what I was drawn to. So I was drawn to a recovery path, despite being told the prognosis is quite bleak. And then I kind of continued down that path of pursuing recovery and found that it worked. And all of a sudden, I felt empowered. And as I began to experience the setbacks that I spoke about earlier, I started to look even more closely to understand what that was about. And as I spent that time kind of trying to understand the void that had been created by what I thought was losing the life that I previously had. I thought it had been taken away from me. I actually started to understand that it was an opportunity, and rather than trying to fill the void with other things that weren't really relevant, but were just to pass the time, essentially. Rather than filling the void, I kind of fell into it, which sounds a bit weird, but I just kind of surrendered to it and let it happen. And it was through doing that I began to learn about myself, and I sought out my first mentor beyond recovering from the illness itself. But I was looking for something that went a little bit deeper, and so my mentor helped me to just really connect with that inner guidance system. And it's been really a profound and life-affirming experience. And since then, I've also kind of worked on I was saying before about how law is quite illogical and analytical, so it's philosophy, and that sense of pushing also that I was talking about earlier. These are all little kind of trademarks along the way of not just how an illness like CFS, chronic fatigue syndrome, might manifest, but it's also seen as perhaps masculine attributes. And I have learned that actually there's masculine and feminine inside me, and I need to embrace them both in order to be more well-rounded in terms of showing up in the world more fully.
I love what you're saying there. And look, this is we could have this whole other conversation around spirituality, and I'm sure we will sometime. But yes, it's what's ringing true very loud and clear for me is that beautiful inner voice, that inner guidance of yours. It comes in many different names. You may know it as your higher self, as spirit, as God, as your inner self, your intuition, whatever word rings through to you, that's what it is. That's that beautiful little spark in you that is your truth. And it's there to guide you, and you will know when you clicked into it because you feel the goosebumps, you feel light, you feel like you're on the right track, and doors open for you. And that's when the truth is shining bright. So it's beautiful. Thank you for that, Eloise. I know I sort of threw that question in a little bit, but I just wanted our listeners to know that it's not a scary journey. It's actually a beautiful one to your truth and to your essence. And it is the doors, as I said, just do start to open wide. And yeah, there'll be setbacks. And is it easy? No, it's not, because everyone would be doing it. But is it worth it?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Now, I know you've got three in particular hot little takeaways to our audience. And this doesn't necessarily relate to anyone that's struggling with their health either. But if you'd like to share those with us, I'd be very interested to hear them.
Sure. Okay. So my message is all about listening to the messages your body provides. And so the first one is that if you listen to the messages your body has for you, then you won't go astray, really. So make sure you do.
I agree. And those messages are pain, they're headaches, they're fatigue, they're all these little things that aren't optimum health.
Even just to add things like nervousness. So, just things that are transient. They don't necessarily have to be chronic conditions, just anything that might be coming up for you. It's important to tap into listening to that and the messages that can unfold.
Absolutely. I agree completely. Nervousness and all those sorts of things. Yeah, absolutely. So listen to the messages your body has for you.
Being true to yourself is essential for your well-being. It's absolutely necessary. So if you stray away from that, then I believe your health might well suffer for it. And finally, our ultimate purpose, I believe, on this planet is to love. And I know that might sound cheesy to some people, but it's what I believe, and I don't mind if people think it's cheesy.
There's only, I've read recently, and it struck a real truth to me, there's only two emotions, there's love and there's fear. And underneath those banners, there are a whole heap of subcategories. But at the end of the day, that's what it comes down to. And love will propel you forward in the most beautiful way, and fear will drag you down every single time.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that.
So yes, I agree. Our ultimate purpose is to love. I'm excited, Eloise. You've given our listeners some beautiful insight now, and you and I both have a very gentle and natural style. So we've sunk into a kind of a semi-meditative podcast today. So I hope everyone's still awake and listening to us. Eloise, please take the floor for a moment and let people know where they can find you.
Okay, sure. So the best place to find me is in my Facebook group, which is called Be You, Be Well. And the link for that is bit.ly/capital B, capital U, capital B, lowercase, or one word, well. And I'd like to also take this opportunity to invite you to download a free gift that I have available, which will allow you to put into practice what I've actually been talking about today. And you can get that by going to www.eloiseheather.com/body calling.
Fantastic. Thank you. That is so generous of you. We will put the link there in the show notes so that people can go there and grab that. That's wonderful. And that's a PDF document, is it, Eloise?
That's correct, yes.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, oh, wow, that's wonderful. I'm excited for that. So thank you very much for joining us, Eloise, for your commitment to help. Oh, look, I love your commitment to helping women be well.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And I'd love to leave our listeners with a message to take the easy road and connect with someone that inspires you to take quantum leaps and bounds in your life, in your health, your wellness, your fitness, your mind strength. You can have anything you want in life once you've taken the step to get here, to listen to us, to get on the road to your true higher purpose. There will be nothing that can stop you. You can find me, Michelle Reinhardt, at $1,000,000mindset.com, or you can find both of us inside our divine online community for spiritual entrepreneurs, and that's in Facebook at Entrepreneurs Globally Unite. Eloise, thank you once again for joining us. Have a beautiful day and a beautiful week. And we'll say goodbye, folks. Shine bright, superstars. That's why you're here. Thank you, Eloise. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.